Germany's central bank, the Bundesbank, has a reputation for being strict, correct, and not caring about hype. So, when reports spread that an internal letter from Frankfurt had been found that said XRP coins were worth $50,000 each, no one in the financial world said a word. This wasn't from someone who knew or an expert who was just guessing. Cast your vote. The stronger bank in Europe sent this word. This is the bank that backs up the euro. From the leak, it looked like Germany had done a full study on their own on how XRP will be used in future cross-border payments, and that the results were not just good, they changed the game. How does Germany fit into the world of banking? That will help us figure out why the Bundesbank would even look into XRPs in this way. They have the most important industry in Europe. They make and ship goods all over the world and do very exact engineering. For moving everything from cars to medical gadgets, you need to be able to make quick, safe international payments. The whole process of making something takes longer when there are delays or cash flow issues. Germany has a clear reason to switch to a cheaper way of settling disputes. Gets rid of delays. Things that Ripple's tech has looked good for 10 years. People who worked on the paper are said to have used something they called a monetary liquidity multiplier model. However, they used it to look at XRP's total useful potential instead of its current market cap. They didn't think Sharp was a bad investment. They saw it as a way to cross the gap between cash and the future tokenized economy, which was based on math. Their engineers came up with a possible price level for by adding up all the money that is sent and received across borders, used for closed trade, and quickly moving cash across Europe. XRP, that's about $50,000 if you used it all up. It wasn't a guess. It was caused by math issues in engineering. This type of valuation is now known as German precise valuation. Data sources like Swift flow rates, SEPA payments, and real-time gross settlement data were used to give each part of the formula a value. It was clear what would happen. If XRP is to become the main source of cash in the Eurozone, it needs to be reprioritized at a level that can keep the system running. The price of $50,000 didn't cover the cost of security in their plans. It had to be done. The Bundesbank didn't tell anyone about this, of course. It was found inside the business in a place called Digital Settlement Layer Valuation Metrics. Still, the message got to private banks and then the news, as it always does. Within hours, analysts in Europe did the same math again and got the same results. Europe looked up to Germany, but they didn't even try. It was strong because the thoughts were sensible and not based on feelings. Sorry. The rest of the EU likes to follow new technical rules set by Germany. When it comes to their economies, France, Italy, and Spain all follow the rules set by Germany. There was news a few days after the leak that the Bank of France had asked for its own study of XRP availability. Banca d'Italia in Milan, Italy, began to look into how RippleNet could connect to trade banking systems. Spain's central bank began a private review of money transfers between countries. Ways to get to Latin America. This is to test whether XRP could make it easier to trade euros for POS. Real time, it was like a chain of events. Deutsche Analysten call the idea at the heart of this change functional collateralization. The idea that guessing can no longer be used to figure out how much something is worth. This is very important to the way the system works. For that, the desire for throughput is important. Well, as transaction speed and number rise, so does the value that needs to be paid per unit. This is the same thought that led to gold being used to pay for trade around the world for hundreds of years. Germany knows this better than anyone else since it is a world leader in both business and industry. Take a moment to think about what that means. Now, the Bundesbank, which used to defend the Deutschmark and later helped make the euro, agrees that a separate asset might be a better way to handle cash flow. It's not a small change of mind. This is the most important change to the way money works in Europe since the euro was made. There were talks going on behind closed doors about how to add XRP to the Target 2 payment method, which is the main way that money moves around in Europe. It was said that engineers were working on ways to add Ripple's on-demand liquidity to the rails that are already in place without replacing them totally. ODAL would then be able to work like a bridge module. Their math showed that the fees for transactions would drop to a few hundredths of a cent, and the time it takes to make a payment would go from 2 days to 2 seconds. They couldn't get away from these numbers because they were too big. Even more so, because Germany is known for having high standards. This is very important. Everyone in the field backs a model when a German company does. The field of financial engineering thinks it's true. If the Bundesbank says it works, it does. No one says that rule. So, in the world of crypto, German approval has become a quick way to say that a company is reliable. As people around the world thought about the news, they began to see similarities with how Germany led Europe to accept the euro in the 1990s. The same careful trust in the same shift based on engineering, and the same focus on being reliable over hype. It didn't happen all of a sudden. It's a normal step forward that comes from need and accuracy. Once the EU adds XRP to its system of funding, other world groups, from ASEAN to BRICS, will have no choice but to do the same. The world as a whole can see the results. Germany's set price of $50,000 per XRP doesn't just mean trust. It changes the market prices of all digital goods. Differential contracts, ETF risks, and even sovereign wealth accounts have to change how they are set up because of it. Banks everywhere Africa will have to change how their reserves work. From a business, it will become a support service for schools. The new gear that Germany just set in motion is starting to make the whole network of banks around the world work better. Some people ask right away, can it really happen? In fact, it's already going on in the background. Business banks in Germany, like Commerzbank and Deutsche Bank, have joined Riplet's pilot programs to try out instant payments and tokenized stocks. There are laws and rules as part of the European MIOS system, and every expert study keeps coming up with the same answer. There is nothing else like XRP in terms of how it is designed. It's not really a question of whether Germany can make this work. It reveals how quickly other people will act. France doesn't wish to fall behind. Italy believes that modernizing its credit markets is a smart move. Spain wants to be the top country for sending money back to family and friends. It's also good for smaller EU countries to have economic. They have power they've never had before. With Germany as a leader, the EU is moving toward tokenized support. No one knows how fast it will happen. The puzzle fits together properly now that this work has been done, and the Basel IV standards and ISO 2022 messaging improvements are on the way. Germany's memo shows that XRP was made to work with those systems. It's not a dream to have $50,000 in XRP. It is the result of a plan that is scientifically sound and is meant to keep the world's money supply stable. At the end of, in 10 years, historians may say that the major change in digital liquidity wasn't started by an American company or an Asian group. Before saying what was going to happen, the Bundesbank was quietly checking the math and making sure everything was correct. When it comes to money, the rest of the world generally builds the plan after Germany agrees to it. At this time, one phrase will be heard in markets, trade desks, and meeting rooms where decisions are made. People from Germany have moved. That's when you know it's real. You need to know when you can link up. Stay in